Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. There's been quite a few patch changes over the past couple of days that I wanted to highlight in this video. We'll go over what the changes are, a buff to Symmetra surprisingly enough, a nerf to Moira, and other bits and pieces which we'll go through bit by bit. We'll go over the recent changes first. The main one I wanted to highlight was for Sigma, the kinetic grasp. The cooldown has been reduced from 15 seconds to 13, with the shield per damage conversion increasing from 0.33 to 0.4. We'll go over generally what these changes mean for the heroes after I've gone through them. Moira has been nerfed. Her fade, being able to fade out of stuns, it's been reverted. You can no longer fade out of earth shatters, being charged, being hooked, being flashbanged, being slept. You can't get away from all of that stuff anymore. There was also a patch 2 days ago with some changes to D.Va, Sombra, Symmetra and Wrecking Ball. For D.Va it's a small one. Her pilot ultimate cost has been reduced by 12%, meaning it should be the same as it once was. Sombra's EMP has been reworded a little bit with the activation time increased from 0.2 to 0.35 seconds. I believe this is basically the same as what it was. Symmetra's had a revert as well, with the cooldown of her teleporter being decreased to 12 seconds, which it was before, and the teleporter reuse time has been decreased from 1.5 seconds to 1. Wrecking Ball has also been reverted to an extent, at least. His minefield projectile speed of the little mines has been decreased from 13 to 12, and then you have a few bug fixes going on to the PTR, just fixing some general stuff, not really too much to mention. The interesting thing about the past two patches that we got, both on Thursday and Wednesday, is that Blizzard aren't afraid to revert some of these changes, which is quite surprising. Blizzard have a reputation of sort of putting stuff on the PTR and going, hey, just give us your feedback, let me know if it's, good or bad. But Blizzard are already waiting to put those changes onto live. They just got to get the certification from PS4 and Xbox. So they don't really care about the feedback that we give them. They're already pretty settled on these changes, at least previously. This time they're showing that they're not afraid to revert some of these changes and they're ready to experiment with other bits and pieces, which I think is a really good sign for the game as a whole. But also part of me is a bit worried that they're doing this. It might mean that Blizzard are kind of rushing out these changes to an extent and aren't really sure the implications of what they're doing at the moment, especially with the addition of a hero like Sigma and also Rollock. That's why I'm kind of a bit worried that Blizzard are a bit on and off with these changes, but I'm glad that they're listening to feedback, especially with the Moira changes, and going, we're going to revert that because that's too much. In fact, I do want to talk a bit more about Moira at the end of this video on how we can help her, because with this fade change being reverted, she is now easily the worst support in the game, I do think. As much as I've said in the past that people should play her more, I even think Brigitte, this new iteration of her, has a lot more to provide than Moira right now. And there's a very specific reason as to why. As I said, end of this video. The Wrecking Ball change is an interesting one. For those that don't remember, when Rollock was added in, onto the PTR at least, the projectile speed of minefield was increased from 10 to 13, I don't know, meters per second, whatever it is. And the problem with that is it made the minefield too spread out, unless you could walk in between the gaps of the mines. Like I said, this isn't a complete revert coming out of Blizzard. They have reduced it down from 13 to 12, which should be a little bit better. There's no developer comments saying, oh yeah, this should alleviate the problem of mines being too spread out. So it seems that Blizzard have found a very happy medium. As I'm showing you on screen, it is a lot better, but it's not as good as it used to be. At least I don't think. Symmetra is definitely an interesting one. These were the old patch notes coming out of Rollock, with the cooldown increased of her teleporter from 12 seconds to 15, and the reuse time increased from 1 to 1.5 seconds, meaning that it felt very clunky to use the teleporter constantly. But it did last an infinite duration, until it was destroyed at least, but the cooldown now starts when the teleporter is destroyed. They increased the range, and it definitely looked that these changes could be a buff for Symmetra. However, the cooldown increase made it so that very fluid style of playing Symmetra was kind of ruined. It was very difficult to play the whole, put a teleport behind them, go in behind, harass them a little bit, teleport back to safety, in and out hokey pokey style. And I think that's where a lot of Symmetra players found their success. However, with this change, looking at what Symmetra mains have been saying, they described it as too static to be running her. But there have been some reverts to Symmetra, as you mentioned. The cooldown has gone from 12 seconds to 15, back to 12 seconds, and the reuse time has also been decreased to 1 second as it originally used to be. So it's a lot more positive. You can get out a lot more teleporters, and the fact that it's now infinite duration as well means that she's in a pretty positive state in comparison to before. Blizzard like to do the whole thing of buffing one aspect, nerfing another, but in this general case, they buffed the duration of the teleporter, nerfed the cooldown of it, but then buffed it back to where it was. So it's still up in the air on how good new Symmetra is going to be. She has a little bit more freedom. I'll be interested to see the strategies coming out with her teleporter, but I still think it's too soon to really see how good she is. Especially with Rollout coming into the game too, she might lose out a little bit with some other options. Now I want to talk about Sigma. I've seen a lot of people really bring up that they aren't impressed with the hero. Some saying he's really good, but a good amount of people saying that they don't rate him, they don't think he's very good. And one of those people that's really raised their concern was Stir in a video talking about why he doesn't think they're a good main tank or an off tank. One of the main complaints was the shield and how clunky it felt and how it was difficult to really, turn around, put out the shield to be able to block a high noon and earth shatter because of how clunky it felt, especially when you just press the secondary fire. Your hand does this weird thing, but your shield doesn't actually come out. And whilst I do understand where he's coming from, and I do agree to an extent, I feel it's too early to really say that the hero's bad because of that, especially when Orisa used to have the same exact problem. I remember players, including myself, when Orisa first came out, complaining about how long the deploy time of her putting down her shield was. Bear in mind, back then, the only main tank option in the game at that point was Reinhardt, and one of the best things about Reinhardt as a hero was the ability to just deploy the shield in any given second. You could quickly block an earth shatter or a high noon by just putting up the shield and instantly dropping it. You had that level of playing dynamically, which you never really got with Orisa way back when because it took so long for her to deploy that shield, or at least that's how it felt. As time went on, players got used to it, and now Orisa's are fairly good at being able to block certain abilities like a high noon or an earth shatter, etc, etc. And I feel that that's going to be the case with Sigma too. In a couple of months, you'll be able to see some pros do some amazing stuff with this hero, as well as loads of fresh nut clips of some awesome Sigma plays. You just got to give it time. But he also raised a really good point about how Sigma felt like he was a rehash of old abilities. He raised the point that Doomfist used to have the assertion ability himself way back in the testing phase before they eventually changed it. You even know this because of the highlight intro that Doomfist has where he picks up a rock and crushes it. It's basically the same thing. Doomfist used to have assertion as his ability, then it was changed, now Sigma has it. So it was definitely a rehash of an ability there. Not to mention, like we said, he has defense matrix now, or at least the old version that Diva had, so his two abilities are from two old heroes, so it is a bit weird, and I understand that he does feel rehashed. However, my argument to that is that Sigma still feels very unique in this game where there's loads of crazy heroes. Blizzard could constantly change how good he is, and they are buffing him as we've gone over in this video already, but he definitely feels independent, and whilst I am now leaning to the side that he's not as good as I may have been hoping for, he is very unique. You can't argue with that for sure. Now to talk about Moira, and I do want to sort of finish on this very quickly. The fact that her fade changes now been reverted means that she has no real utility other than putting out a metric ton of healing. Without any form of tank play or goats, I just think that this puts Moira at the bottom of the pile because she doesn't have any form of utility. Even the devs say this. Moira has always been good at healing and dealing damage, but she offers very little utility compared to other heroes. This change reinforces her evasive nature and allows her potentially to save her team from area stuns such as Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. With this being reverted, why would you play Moira? I say that she's a really good crutch hero to play when you're suffering from being dove on, because you are very evasive like Blizzard said, and also the healing output that you can have. If you're dying a lot as Anna or whoever because you're being dunked on by a Doomfist, Moira is a really good option. But other than that, I don't really know why you would play her in any given situation. So I hope that Blizzard come back to this and try build on Moira's evasive nature, either by making her move a little bit faster just passively, making the distance that you could fade a lot longer, stuff like that. I think they can really build on that for Moira, but I am really curious to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Hope you have a good weekend. It's very warm, so stay hydrated, stay safe, I suppose. And yeah, have a good one. Take care. We'll see you soon.